Hi, Mary. Welcome to Tales and Tunes Talks.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you here, and it's such a big coincidence as well, because you are the daughter of my longtime friend, writer Frank. And in a recent conversation, we just found out actually his daughter is a brilliant choral composer. Mary, I just wanted to read from your amazing website. She is an award winning composer whose works have been performed by ensembles, including the Riot Ensemble, Chroma, BCMG, and the Nash Ensemble, and in venues ranging from Southwark Cathedral to Wigmore Hall. And recently, she has been chosen as the Rising Star by Classic FM for 2025, which is an amazing achievement. Congratulations for that. And on top of that, just last month, one of her compositions, I Can Feel Time, was performed in Carnegie Hall in New York. And she just came very recently from there. So let me ask you straight away, Mary, how was your experience with listening to your composition in Carnegie Hall? And how does it feel to come back to London after an experience like that?
I mean, it was an incredible experience to be able to go to America and to hear the piece over there, and even to be invited to write for Carnegie Hall. It was so special and so inspiring, and I'm really so grateful to Guildhall for that opportunity, and also to the performers, because I'd worked with some of them previously on various projects and operas, and it was so special to be able to write something especially for them when I knew how they perform and how they interact. And it was, yeah, just such an amazing, quite surreal experience to be able to fly to America and hear it performed in Carnegie Hall.
It's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, it was incredible, and yeah, really grateful for that. And then now being back in London, it's thinking what to do next and moving on from that. I've just given a talk at Guildhall this week reflecting on I Can Feel Time and the Carnegie Hall concert. So it's really nice to have this period of reflection, and then also thinking about future projects. I'm hoping to work with the writer who wrote the text for that project again on several new other projects. So I'm really excited to see what might be in store for us next, and to take this time back in London to be thinking about future plans and how to, use the experience at Carnegie Hall into creating pieces for London.
Oh, that's amazing. Because this will be a different experience. Now you will be doing that future project, having the experience of your composition already being performed in Carnegie Hall, and then building on top of it. It will be quite interesting to see the change on top of that. I really want to dwell on I Can Feel Time a bit, actually, because it's such an exciting piece. You've mentioned on your socials about how this piece grew from your conversations while walking along the Thames, particularly about urban life, loneliness, and how different environments alter our perception of time. So, can I ask, like, how was the work received in New York, and did hearing it there change your own relationship to your composition afterwards?
Yeah, it was interesting to go to New York and to hear it, because I think it's always a different culture, and it's always quite interesting to see how a piece is received in another country compared to in the home country. And it was really special because it was performed in London at Milton Court Concert Hall, and then it was performed in New York in Carnegie Hall.
So, what was the difference of the perceptions among the audience?
I think they were very different environments. The first one was in Milton Court, which is very much Guildhall's concert hall, and so it was mostly friends of me and of the performers, and it had that really friendly, encouraging
They are
environment
already
about
biased
it.
about you, kind of. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Well, they were really supportive, and it
Yeah.
was just a really special opportunity and quite relaxed, I think. And then Carnegie Hall is obviously a very grand venue with all these chandeliers,
Yeah.
and it was a very different experience, I think, hearing it there. But there was still, people were quite positive about it. They all seemed quite receptive to the whole program
The
of
openness.
works, yeah. And the performers doing a range of different pieces that, they particularly liked and particularly enjoyed, and it was quite an eclectic program. And I think it was quite well received, and it was really enjoyable to see the performers and also to work with the performers through the whole process, because I'd worked with the singer before, and it was just really exciting to be able to write a piece that in some ways was customized especially for her and especially for her voice, and to be able to work along with the performers and to rehearse with them and to see the piece develop a little bit in conversation with them. So that was quite exciting, quite special, really, I think. And we knew, I mean, myself and the writer, Sophia Truick, knew that the piece was going to be performed in London and then also in New York. So we knew we wanted to create this sense of the city and how we felt about the city, because we knew it was going to be performed in these two big superpower cities.
Yeah.
And so we got that sense of living in the city through walking along the river in between our lessons at Guildhall and sessions. And yeah, it was just really interesting to think about how we both felt about the city, and walking in London where you can go through, you know, the hectic commuter rush of Bank, and then you can go to the Tate Modern Gallery, which is where we often went as kind of a bit of a getaway or a place to get away from all the rush of London and just sit and look at the artwork for a while. And I think visual art was really important to us as well. So going to New York and going to the MoMA and the Met and Guggenheim was actually really inspiring for us, because we take so much of our inspiration from visual art.
Yeah. So yeah, that lots of things are mirroring each other in that sense, actually. Oh, interesting. Well, can I ask you, taking one step back, so what first drew you to choral music in particular? And when did you decide to pursue music seriously? And then composition felt like the right path for you?
Yeah, I sang at school, so I was part of some choirs at school. I remember our school choir sang at the Royal Albert Hall at the proms once, which was very inspiring.
It must have been a great
as
experience, yeah.
As a young person, I think I was about 15, and that was just such an incredible experience for a young person to be able to have. And I sang with the English Chamber Choir when I was in my later teens on a few projects, and that was also really exciting, you know, to sing choral parts to film scores. I think we sang some Harry Potter and things like that, and that was just really exciting for me as quite a young person. So I knew I had that interest in singing and choral music from doing it myself, and I applied to be a choral scholar at Jesus College, Cambridge. And singing with them for 3 years really inspired my interest in choral music, because we sang everything from really, really early pieces to brand new pieces and world premieres, and it was just having that exposure to such a
Wide
broad
variety.
range. Yeah, and it was all exceptional quality music, so having that opportunity and that exposure really helped me to, you know, have this language of choral music and to be thinking about how I might write some of it myself. I wrote my first choral piece in my first year of university, which I wrote for the Minerva Festival composition competition.
Amazing.
And that was just such an incredible opportunity to be able to write something for them. And it was the first time that I'd written something and then I'd heard it performed by performers. And it was just, yeah, it was incredible to be able to write something and then to hear it performed and hear it sung back to you.
It must be an interesting experience, because you spend so much time in your head and then maybe with the paper or whatever you're working with, and then suddenly it goes out to the public.
Yes, I think it's a really special part of the process, actually. Because
And it's not yours anymore, maybe, because whoever is like a book, you know, whoever reads it, it's their book as well.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own interpretation. But I think that's really fascinating with performers, to hear how they put their own stamp on something, and particularly with opera as well, like how somebody creates a character from the character that you've maybe written in the music. But in choral music, to be able to bring something to life through those extra interpretations that, you know, only a performer can really provide. And then the audience obviously has their own interpretation, so it's multiple layers. But it was just incredible to do that competition and to have that opportunity to write something and then to receive feedback from some people in the choral industry, and to have people like Judith Weir and Sarah McDonald and Deborah Pritchard giving feedback on my compositions at a very early stage in my exploration was just, yeah, it was really inspiring for me.
Amazing. And looking back to your education, so you trained at, as you said, Jesus College, Cambridge, and then Royal Academy of Music, and now Guildhall. So that's a very, very solid classical foundation. So alongside that, you are clearly drawn to innovation and industry collaboration. So did that curiosity feel encouraged by your training, or on the vice versa, did it require pushing against some odds or certain traditions? And I know from your reading about you also founded the New Music Festival in Cambridge.
Yeah, I think those three institutions gave me a really solid base in composition and in music in general, and I'm so grateful to all of them for that. I think working with those choirs in Cambridge gave me a sense of that collaboration, and that's something that I continued at the Royal Academy. And at the Academy particularly, I did several collaborations with some of my peers there. I remember I did my project on collaborations, so I had a song cycle in collaboration with a soprano librettist and a piece about dementia in collaboration with a filmmaker.
Oh yeah, I
So,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting to see how collaboration could be both part of the degree I was doing and also something that was in some ways extra to it, or in some ways reaching out to other people on different courses and seeing how our shared interests could maybe combine or interact with each other.
Or spark the creativity in you in some other ways.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most exciting parts of the process, really, is to be able to have somebody else that you can bounce ideas off and new sparks that come purely through conversation. I think sometimes composition is quite a isolated or solitary
Yeah, solitary.
process. Like you're sat in a room and creating ideas, but when you bring other people into that process, particularly through having new text or new videography or even performers that you're thinking specifically of writing for, it just creates that sense of actually this is a bubble of people. It's not just a solitary pursuit, but it has all these other people involved, and it just gives it that extra spark of creativity. And I think that's something that also probably spurred the New Music Festival, was thinking we want to get more people coming together to create new music together and being able to premiere new works and create workshops for people so they can come together and talk about new work.
Oh, so it was the collaboration
yeah.
aspect that motivated you more to do different things.
Yeah, no, it's something I really love, and it's
I was saying in Turkish, one mind is always better than the other mind. So the power of, putting all the minds together kind of and creating something. I'm a firm believer of that, yeah. Amazing. Can I ask you, what do you think emerging composers today most need in order to take creative risks today? Because, creative world is limitless. But then the structure or the whatever tradition you come from might be both an asset or a limiting factor. So how do you balance that? Or what are the creative risks that they need to take, do you think, in today's world?
Yeah, I think people need to be taking risks in today's world more than ever, probably. And it's so exciting that people are doing that at the moment. I think, if anything were needed to support emerging composers and emerging musicians at the moment, I think it's that question of support and stability, because there's so many people creating amazing work and, juggling that with part-time jobs or full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So it's that question of being a creative person and trying to balance that alongside
Practical life.
earning an income and practical life, and being able to have the freedom to take risks and be able to explore new avenues that maybe they haven't explored before, or they haven't had the chance to explore, because there's been this constant balance between different things. So I think, if it were possible to give people that springboard into creation and that support and stability, then I think it could be really exciting what
Very
people
valuable.
manage to do with that. Yeah.
Amazing. So I want to focus on your music solely now. So there's a sense in your music of something, when I was listening to your composition, something very tender and fragile on the surface, but structurally very strong, very solid rock, I would say, underneath. And it might seem as a contradiction, but it's not. And I would like to ask you about, how do you think about the truth in your work?
I think I've always tried to have that sense of authenticity and honesty in my work. I first wanted to become a composer, really, because I felt moved by other people's work and other people's vulnerability, especially in their work, particularly when writing about lived experiences. And that's something that I've always tried to keep at the forefront. I mean, I wrote that piece about dementia that I mentioned, which was based on the last words of one of my relatives who had passed from dementia. And it was really special for me to be able to create a piece that was so personal and so connected to my own experiences. And I think that rawness and that authenticity and honesty maybe allowed me to resonate really deeply with it, and hopefully allowed other people to also experience that connection or that resonance perhaps with their own lives. And that's something that I've really tried to keep at the center of pretty much everything I do, is that connection to my own lived experiences and thinking about themes that particularly resonate with me. And that's interesting as well in collaboration, because I have certain collaborators who we have our own shared preoccupations that come up and that arise. For example, myself and Sophia, who I wrote the Carnegie Hall piece with, when we used to go to the Tate Modern Gallery, we'd find our own shared preoccupations coming up purely through that, like our interest in home and belonging and isolation, as well as automation. And yeah, it's just been really interesting to see how I can have my own interests and authenticity as an individual and as a composer, and then also with certain people we can have our own identity kind of as a collaboration.
Yeah. What happens as a very, very personal experience sometimes ends up in a very collective experience, resonating in there as well with other people. It must have been a great journey to see.
Yeah, it is special. I mean, I remember I wrote this piece with a soprano librettist about experiences of women in contemporary society, and had several people come up to me afterwards and say, you know, how much it resonated with them. And I think by being vulnerable and by being unafraid to write about things that are personal,
Then you reach the collective. And
you're able to resonate with people. And that's just such a special experience. I remember I went to see this production by Hannah Conway about people who had lost their voice due to cancer. And that just really struck me, because it was so moving and it was so vulnerable and it was so raw and honest in its emotional depiction of these people and musical depiction. And that just really struck me, I think. And I thought, you know, I want to create work that resonates with people and that moves people, because this has had such a moving impact on me. And in a way, that's why I decided to become a composer and to create music, is to try and speak to people in that way.
amazing. Amazing. I mean, you talk in such a fragile way, like, you know, your heart is already on the table, like I can touch it. So touching. So can I ask you, my favorite compositions of yours, all of them are really tender and so beautiful. The Night Sky, I quite enjoyed it, and A New Earth. I will ask you the silliest question, how you were inspired to write these two pieces.
Well, The Night Sky was quite an early piece, I think. I've always been a bit of a night owl, to be honest.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
okay.
someone who comes alive more in the evenings, I would say. So I often take walks out in the park at night, and particularly when I go places like the Lake District and walking out in the later evening there, and you can just see so many stars than you would ever see in London. It's just such a moving experience to be able to see something that has so much power and magnitude compared to our own small lives on Earth.
Yeah.
And it just brings everything into perspective. And I wrote the text for that piece myself, which is quite a rare thing for me.
Oh, that's interesting, because this is really interesting. Yeah, that kind, the same feeling I get from, you know, seeing loads of stars in the Aegean part of Turkey, where I spent most of my summers in childhood. I was always amazed by these huge set of stars that you're easily able to see, because it's not an urban area. Maybe that's why I connected to that song so much.
Well, I definitely really enjoyed writing that song. A New Earth, that was based on a text from Revelation. And I think that one was particularly interesting to me because it was taking a text that could maybe resonate with people beyond its sacred setting. So it's been performed in a variety of different places and by a variety of different choirs, not all of whom are church choirs or cathedral choirs. And I just really enjoyed setting that text because it's hoping for a new earth where all the evils of the world have passed away and we can have this refreshed sense of perspective and this refreshed sense of
Joy.
life.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that can maybe be hopefully universal and
Yeah.
a universal theme for people. So I really enjoyed writing that piece and giving it that sense of hope for a future.
Amazing. I want to ask you about your creative process. And do deadlines and pressure help focus your creativity more, or do you prefer longer periods of explorations, or maybe a mix of both?
I really enjoy exploration. I think it's a brilliant part of the creative process, and also consuming art as well as creating art. I think there's something about sitting in a room trying to create without any outside influence that can maybe cause creativity to dry up or run out in some way, but then going out to hear performances and to see visual art and to, you know, be inspired by the art and the world around me is something that really sparks ideas. And I think especially when I'm writing about lived experiences, I need to be able to have those lived experiences and to be able to take the world in so that I can then try and write about it. So that's been something that's been really central to me, is having that balance of being able to go out and to hear performances and see artwork and see how that might influence me.
Yeah, it's more exploration process for you.
Yeah, and I think it's important for that to be able to happen. But then I think there is something about deadline that just encourages you to really reach the finishing point, and there's just that sense of motivation. And also, particularly if you have a future performance in mind and, oh, this is going to be performed in this venue in this length of time, like it has to be finished, but also the inspiration of, oh, this is going to be performed, and it's all quite exciting, particularly when you talk to performers who are starting to learn your pieces. And yeah, I think there is something about deadline that just motivates things to their finishing point, because there's so many projects you can do for your own love of creating or your own love of being an artist, as I'm sure you find as well. But that sense of, oh, this has to be finished, I think really brings it all to a head and really creates that sense of urgency that can actually sometimes inspire creativity, I think, for me.
Yeah, it's like a two-way process, maybe. So carrying on with your creative process, so when a new commission arrives, do you usually return to some earlier sketches and ideas, or you just focus on the new commission idea and start from nothing?
I usually start from nothing, I think. Well, I usually start from a new point every time, but I'm sure it's very much inspired by all my previous work and my previous discussions and interests. But yes, if I were to receive a commission, I would usually go out and think about the idea and maybe think about who I might collaborate with and having conversations with them, and maybe listening to other pieces of music or going to other concerts that might inspire that piece. So I think I do generally start afresh every time, and I find that quite enjoyable. But I'm sure there are definitely, as I've mentioned, shared preoccupations that keep rising and keep coming to the surface. And I think there was one piece, A New Earth, which was based on the introduction of a previous piece, The Living Fire, that I'd written. So that was quite an exciting experience, to be able to take something that I had already written and expand it into a full piece, because that was just introduction and the first 2 pages of The Living Fire, but I found it really exciting to be able to expand it into something much larger and to be able to explore the potential within all those different ideas and see how else they could be sung and how else they could be expressed. So I think that was quite an exciting experience, but I do generally start from scratch every time, even though there are definitely recurring themes and a recurring voice that comes back simply because it's written by me and it's got my own preoccupations at the heart of it, I suppose. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, this might be a bit of maybe an intrusive question, but still I want to ask. How does composing music based on religious texts, sacred texts, differ for you from settling in a poetry or secular writing in terms of emotions, feelings, or how do you look at the music that you are composing?
Yeah, I mean, most of the choral music I've done to this point has been sacred, I would say. I think there's maybe about 2 pieces or a couple of pieces that are secular. And then most of the other work that I've done has been secular. And most of my song cycles, for instance. But I think it's interesting to think about the different approaches, and it's been fascinating because sometimes I take texts from the Bible, for instance, A New Earth was adapted from the Bible, and then sometimes I maybe ask a writer to interpret certain religious themes. So it can be really interesting to have that fresh perspective as well, and to see that texts are actually quite different even if they're both sacred, or texts can be really different even if they're both secular. And I think pieces like The New Earth were particularly resonant with me, I suppose, because they have that connection to religion and to the book of Revelation, but also that connection to new hope and a new start and hope for a better world in the future as well as in another life. And I think that resonance of hope and hope for a new world is something that has hopefully universal appeal beyond the religious text itself.
Oh, it gives you the feeling of expansion, maybe the letter, maybe, yeah. I want to mention about your recent achievement about being one of the rising stars. So how did it feel to be named as one? And has that recognition changed anything about how you see your work or how others approach you?
I mean, it was an incredible experience
Yeah.
to hear about it. It was a really amazing opportunity. I remember getting the email and I couldn't quite believe it. It's so special to be able to have that recognition for young musicians and to be able to have
Boost, isn't it?
that sense of achievement, I suppose, but also recognition for young artists. And it's been such a special experience, and to be able to go on Classic FM and talk about my work and to be able to have that experience and that opportunity is just incredible at this point. And I'm just so grateful to everyone at Classic FM and to everyone who made it possible for that to happen. I think it's just so incredible to have that opportunity and to hear The Living Fire performed on Classic FM, and to hear the choir of Jesus College Cambridge, which is obviously the choir that I sang with and had such a impact on my career and an impact on my compositions. I mean, in many ways it's where everything began to take more of an influence in my life. It's where choral music began to really become a central part of the music that I was creating. So that was just such a special experience, and I'm so grateful to everyone who made that happen. It's given that sort of platform, I suppose, to my work, and to be able to have that recording made and released by CRD Records was an incredible boost. To be able to have that profile and that portfolio out there is really incredible. I'm so grateful to everyone who's made that happen, and it's very special, as an emerging composer, to have a recording like that. It's just incredible, and I think that's allowed people to maybe access my work in new ways, particularly in the world of choral music. It's given me that extra exposure, I suppose, and I've had several choral opportunities. It's been very exciting to see how that extra step into the choral world has had an influence and also has propelled me more, I suppose, and encouraged me more in my interests in choral music, because that's something that's really close to my heart. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. So nice to hear. I want to ask about the environment you grew up, if that's okay. I know Frank for a long time, and also I have met with your mom when we ran into each other in Eric Whitacre's concert in Royal Albert Hall. They seem so very supportive of your connection to arts and how you're deeply connected to the arts with parents who clearly value creative work. And I remember, I need to mention about this. So after one Table 52 writers meeting, I call it my Dead Poet Society here. And to support Frank's, one of the paintings that were displayed in Landmark Arts Center.
Oh, wow.
So we went all together there, and we've seen his work, his painting. I still remember how deeply mentioned about you, whom I didn't know back then. It was the painting of a tree that you were always passing by during your walks in Bushy Park as a dad and a daughter, which reminded me about my long walks with my dad I used to do in my childhood. and, full of conversations. And I think it was a tree. One side was trimmed, but then it found a way to grow in other ways.
Yeah.
The visual is still on my mind of that tree. And when he was mentioning about these long walks of you, he was really emotional. Like, I could see the huge love that he had for you. How did that environment shape your relationship with music and your confidence as an artist?
Yeah, that tree is very significant to us.
It was. It is significant to all of our writer friends now, because it was such a really touching moment that he was mentioning about. Because we were asking, like, why did you paint, this tree? And then it had a mark on us. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not quite sure the story behind it, but I think it might have been struck by lightning or burned in some way, so it's been completely hollowed out, and then one side of it is completely dead, and then the other side of it miraculously manages to keep on living. I think I did a GCSE art project on it that was called Beginning and End, because it has this new beginning even though in some way it's ended. So it's just that inspiration of being able to carry on even in such traumatic circumstances.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something we regularly walk past, and I think having those walks and talks is often something that fuels creativity. That was just very inspiring to be able to have that.
There's something special about walking and talking, isn't it? Yeah.
There's just that sort of freedom to allow thoughts to wander as you're walking, especially through nature, I think. And seeing things around you and being inspired by things around you. I think that's been an amazing opportunity to have that, and really special to be able to share that together and to have that shared creative interest where we can talk about those things. And both my parents have been so supportive of my work as a musician, and I'm so grateful to them both for that. They're really supportive in coming to concerts and in just supporting me in my work and in my creativity and musical interests. I mean, my mum is a musician and a music teacher, and so that was a really important part of myself growing up and exploring my interest in music, and having that shared interest as well, I think is so special. And being able to have that shared interest in creativity with both of them, and to be able to share that, I think, it's been very special, and it's a very supportive environment, and I think that's so important and so beneficial to any creative person and any musician, to have that grounding and that support that really just encourages you in your own art.
And then gives you confidence to make art despite all odds. What lies ahead? I know you mentioned about your ongoing projects with your writer friend, compose the second phase. So anything else, or what lies ahead?
There's a few projects on the horizon. I'm doing a project in collaboration with Mind at the moment, the mental health charity, where I'm writing.
Karen works for that in our group.
Oh, very nice. I mean, it's people who are associated with a charity are writing poetry that we then as composers are setting to music. And it's really special to be part of that process, as they use the poetry as a form of catharsis or as a form of processing their own emotions. And then it's quite an honour to be able to then set those to music and maybe be part of that process. So that's something I'm really
That's
looking
exciting.
forward to. Yeah, and then going out into the community and sharing the love of music, and I think it kind of connects to my own desire to be authentic and to be able to create work based on lived experiences, and it just extends that more broadly, which I'm excited about. I'm about to start working on a new piece for the National Youth Choir.
Oh, really? Amazing.
Yeah, because I'm one of their emerging professional artists for this year.
Very cool.
We get to write a few new pieces for the National Youth Choir, so I'm very, very excited for that. I think that'll be fun.
So much looking forward to it. I will be for both of the projects.
Yeah, and just being able to continue exploring choral music and being able to continue my love of that with such a prestigious organisation will be very exciting. Yeah.
Amazing. Obviously, we will hear your name more and more in the future, it seems. Yeah. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for agreeing to have an interview in Tales and Tunes Talks, and I hope you enjoyed as well.
Thank you so much for talking to me. I mean, it's so great to be able to talk about work and to be able to talk about creativity with somebody who's obviously shares those passions and shares those interests, especially in choral music. It's been really special. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you again.